some olives offered by an Arcadian shepherd in the midday heat to the sound of the cicades, the greeting "Herite," uttered by an old woman we met, or an ancient Greek place name that turned out to be really somewhere. Each time we returned to our home on Leros after a lengthy absence, we were intoxicated with happiness. Life was one long celebration there. We were surrounded by well-wishers. The air was balmy and the light brighter than anywhere else. A dream so out of touch with reality could not, of course, last indefinitely. Disillusionment was painful. When neighbors started suing us about our plot of land, when we were accused of being Turkish spies and smugglers of hashish because we sailed so often with the Daphne to the hated Turkey, and when the local newspaper branded Diana's Island, the book I had so lovingly written about Leros, as slanderous and insulting to the islanders. The interesting thing is that these personal experiences of Greek suspicion and spite gave me a new insight into ancient Greece. Whereas I earlier thought that present-day Greeks were as noble as I had imagined the ancient Greeks were, I now realized that the ancient inhabitants of the country were as ambiguous, untrustworthy, and quarrelsome as their modern counterparts. Losing your illusions is hard, but in the long run, healthy. To my satisfaction, I have found that my more realistic assessment of the Greeks has not detracted from my love of the country, but has, on the contrary, brought me closer to both the milieu and the people. The deeds of the ancients are no less great when viewed against a background of conflicts and intrigue. My neighbors became more alive when I could tell which were my real friends and which were just waiting for an opportunity to harm me, purely for their own personal satisfaction. Our home on Leros is made up of two, perhaps 100-year-old houses joined together. They are of the usual type found in the Cyclades, with stone walls 1 meter thick and a flat roof made of reeds and blue clay. They can justifiably be called a gift from Daphne, because it was she who brought us here in 1965, and I was able to buy the place because of the books I wrote about our sailing voyages. There is a big difference between visiting a country as a tourist and living there. Thanks to the house, we have gradually put down our roots in the stony ground of Leros. The lashing rain of the storms in winter, the wild flowers of the spring, the warm, star-spangled summer nights have become part of our lives, as have the obstinate, uneasy inhabitants of the island, with their ceaseless preoccupation with new plans. Leros has given us daily object lessons on Greece's social, economic, religious and political circumstances, but all that they embrace of thousands of years of ancient traditions combined with stimuli from our contemporary technocratic world transformation. When we came to the island, the dramatic events of the war years and the whole of the pre-war Italian colonial period were still fresh in people's memories and in the tales they told. Today, many of our friends have moved to the cemetery, where we saunter exclusively among our acquaintances, while the children and grandchildren of the dead have taken over their tasks and become well known to us as friends or enemies. On such a small island, you get to know every tiny hamlet, every road, even the shepherd's paths in the hills, every spring, holy chapel and rubbish dump, but also every blustery inlet and every recalcitrant rockhead. In fact, there is no other place on earth, either in Finland or elsewhere, that I know more completely and in greater detail than Leros.
Det var det är fint här i kyrkan. Jag vill se om jag ska hitta den här den här livanen.
Jag fann det ljuset här.
Ja, jag tände något ljus på den också. När jag med fram här så ställer vi. Jag hoppas att allt går bra. Ser du här har innan var tydligen det känns. Ska se om vi får igång det här. Borde ha satt lite mera liani på det för att få igång det. Men det är ganska bra redan nu. Sådär. Tänk att de ändå lyser. Jag samlar ihop det på en plats.
We probably all have a dream of the Mediterranean. For some, it is no more than a passing fancy, while for others, it is a lifelong vision. Alvar Aalto was among those who fell most strongly under the spell of the Mediterranean. His architectural works, not only those of his early youth, but also from later years, bear the distinct stamp of the Mediterranean dream. It was, in fact, our mutual feelings about the Mediterranean that brought Aalto and I together in 1952, and which kindled a lifelong friendship between us. We discovered immediately that we drank from the same springs. Goethes italienische Reise, Jakob Burckhardt, Die Kultur der Renaissance in Italien. And above all that, we were both equally enraptured with those miraculous towns of northern Italy, Venice, Florence, and Siena. All this provided an endless basis for conversation, enjoyment of one another's company, and, in time, even yielded tangible results. In 1969, Aalto designed a home for me in Finland, the Villa Skeppet, the ship, in Tammesaari. And after his death, in 1976, I took on the enormous task of writing his biography. When the film you are now watching was being planned, it seemed natural to me that the program should include 3 places that Alto and I visited independent of one another, but where our zeal to catch the dream of the Mediterranean burned as brightly. The first was Florence, with 2 architectural monuments that Alto never ceased praising: the great Renaissance architect Brunelleschi's cathedral dome, and the small but exquisite Pazzi chapel. The second shrine for this film pilgrimage was San Gimignano in Tuscany,